Hello viewers, let us discuss today the topic Development, Welfare and the State in India, a study of MGNREGA. Now the Government of India has from time to time formulated a number of social welfare policies concerning employment, education, health, food and so on and so forth. In India, both the union as well as the state governments are responsible for formulating and implementing social welfare policies. Some of the social welfare policies are carved by the union government and the implementation is done by the state governments, wherein funds are provided by the central government. However, there are a number of social welfare policies which are formulated and implemented by the state governments according to the requirements of that particular state. Now, the Union Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment have been created in order to formulate and implement social welfare schemes and policies. Now, social welfare administration is of utmost importance because only formulating welfare schemes is by itself not enough unless and until they are implemented efficiently and effectively. This is where the role of social welfare administration comes in. Recognizing the need of proper social welfare administration, the Ministry of Welfare was created in 1985. This ministry was renamed as the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment in 1998. This particular ministry is the nodal organization for the implementation of social welfare schemes in the country. Now, we need to know that all the social welfare schemes have their origin in terms of social welfare directives in the Constitution. In other words, the social welfare principles to be followed by the union and state governments flows from the various constitutional directives. Most importantly, the directive principles of state policy enjoin a number of welfare principles to be followed by the state in promoting social welfare. Apart from a number of social welfare schemes such as the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, as well as the National Rural Health Mission, we have a plethora of schemes that have been introduced by the Government of India from time to time in order to promote the conditions of women, children, marginalized sections of the community. Today we shall study one such important scheme, and that is MGNREGA, which is also known as the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. Very popularly, this is called the 100 Days Scheme because it provides for rural livelihood for 100 days in a financial year. In order to better understand the scheme, we would first start with the conceptualization of the scheme. Then we would move on to the features of the scheme, which will entail the entitlements of the workers. Then we will try to move on and understand how the implementation of this scheme is done, and finally we'll try to see how MGNREGA is a paradigm shift from earlier similar employment driven schemes. Now, this particular scheme, MGNREGA, came into being in the year 2006. Unlike all previous schemes, this scheme is a result of a parliamentary enactment. So, MGNREGA flows from a parliamentary legislative enactment and hence it has a statutory recognition. This particular scheme envisages livelihood security of the people at the grassroots level by guaranteeing, as I just said, 100 days of employment in a financial year to rural households. MGNREGA marks a paradigm shift from earlier an all existing wage employment scheme in the sense that this is not just a scheme. This is an act which enables wage employment, which also entails the fact that you now have a legal guarantee to receive work. Another important area of importance is the fact that the Panchayati Raj institutions or the rural local governments are considered to be the implementing agencies for this program. Nevertheless, over the years, MGNREGA has evolved as a flagship program of the Government of India to provide for legal guarantee of employment in manual unskilled labor to rural households. Now let us try to understand how this act is so unique. This act gives a special place to envisioning local democracy. The act is empowering not only for rural households but also for rural local governance, because the Gram Panchayats and the Gram Sabha has a very important role to play in the entire implementation of this particular scheme. The Act honors local knowledge and local wisdom, and its operational structure is based on the principles of decentralization and participatory decision making. The provisions of decentralized planning and implementation processes embedded in MGNREGA has great power to establish the instruments of local governance and activate Gram Sabhas as well as Panchayati Raj institutions. Now let us try to understand the major features of MGNREGA. The first important feature is that it is a demand-driven program conceptualized to create and enhance livelihood security for the most vulnerable rural households in India. Keeping the citizens at its center, the planning takes place at all levels of government administration, starting from the bottom. Thus, this program is unique in the sense that its implementation takes in a bottom-up approach. The next important feature is the pivotal role played by Gram Panchayats in the implementation of MGNREGA. Gram Panchayats are supposed to implement at least 50% of the works in terms of cost. Where the Gram Panchayat is the implementing agency, all work shall mandatorily be approved by the Gram Sabha, which makes this scheme highly participatory in nature. Let us now come to the entitlements under MGNREGA. In other words, MGNREGA for the first time provides a number of legal entitlements on the part of the workers who wish to get themselves enrolled in the particular scheme. The first entitlement under this is the right to a job card. Each rural household is entitled to a job card which contains the names and photographs of all the adult members in the household so that they can apply for and receive work. This is the first entitlement. The second entitlement is the right to demand and receive work within 15 days. What is very important is the time period within which they can be given the work. The Act specifically says that every adult member of a registered household whose name appears in the job card shall be entitled to apply for unskilled manual work under the scheme. And every such application shall be compulsorily registered, issued a dated receipt which shall be entered in the IT system, which means that registration of the name of the job card holder is also a part of this entire process of giving work. Entitlement 3. Right to unemployment allowance. This particular scheme provides that if an applicant for employment under the scheme is not provided employment within 15 days of receipt of his application seeking employment or the date from which the employment has been sought, in the case of an advance application, he shall be entitled to a daily unemployment allowance till he receives the regulation for work. The daily unemployment allowance rate is also fixed. The Act specifically provides that the daily unemployment allowance will be at a rate not less than 1/4 of the wage rate for the first 30 days during the financial year and not less than 1/2 of the wage rate for the remaining period of the financial year. Thus, his financial security is also protected in the event he does not get job in that particular financial year in which he has applied for. Entitlement 4. Right to plan and prepare a shelf of projects. All workers have a right to participate in the Gram Sabha and decide the order of work and the prioritization of work to be taken up under this particular scheme, which means that what are the different work that can be taken up on a priority basis is also part of the entitlement of the worker who has applied for the work, which means that work will not be imposed upon the worker. He shall be a partner in the process of identifying the work in that financial year. The Gram Panchayat shall be responsible for identification of the projects in the Gram Panchayat area to be taken up under the scheme in that financial year. All work will be executed by the Gram Panchayat and shall be identified and placed before the Gram Sabha for their approval. Entitlement 5. Right to obtain work within a radius of 5 km. The worker shall be allocated to a work site preferably within 5 kilometers of his or her residence. Now, if a worker is allocated work beyond 5 kilometer radius of his or her residence, the worker has the right to get a travel allowance. The Act formally declares an overarching role of the panchayats in this process. Let us try to understand how this entire scheme is implemented at the panchayat or local level. The Act formally declares the panchayats at the 3 levels as principal authorities of planning and implementation of this particular scheme. Panchayats are more than authorities for implementation of the Act because they have an intrinsic value of ensuring enhanced livelihood security of the rural citizens residing in that particular area of the Gram Panchayat. As per the MGNREGA Act, implementing agencies include any department of the central or the state government, Zilla Parishad, Panchayat Samiti at the intermediate level, Gram Panchayat at the grassroots level, and any non-governmental organization which seeks to involve themselves in the process of implementation of the work. The Act further says that at least 50% of the total cost of the work shall be allocated to Gram Panchayats for implementation. The officer of the line department at the block level can also work as a program officer under MGNREGA. For enhanced participation of women under this scheme, efforts shall be made for engaging of women self-help group for better implementation of this program. In order to further understand how MGNREGA has to be implemented at the grassroots level, the Act specifies that the implementing agencies shall have the right to implement the various types of work, but then there would be a social audit conducted to review the progress of implementation of work under this Act. The social audit specifically provides for access to various types of implementation records, which means that the Act mandates the monitoring of the work within the Gram Panchayat by the Gram Sabha and the conduct of regular social audit of all the projects under the scheme. The Act further mandates that the Gram Panchayat shall make available all bills, vouchers, records pertaining to MGNREGA to the agency conducting social audit of MGNREGA programs. The Gram Panchayat is considered to be the custodian of the shelf of projects, and all Panchayati Raj institutions have been entrusted with the task of specifically identifying which project will be taken up in a particular financing year. Please note that the task of MGNREGA is not just to provide 100 days of work. Another important objective is asset creation. The Act clearly states that the type of work that will be taken up by the Gram Panchayat will also entail creation of durable assets under that Gram Panchayat area, which will lead to creation of further work in the years to come. Arrangements have been made to ensure that women who participate under the scheme are not inconvenienced in any form. Special facilities in terms of condition of providing creches to women who have young children, as well as providing of shelters and shades to be provided to workers working in open sites or areas. The Gram Panchayats have been given a plethora of roles and responsibilities to ensure effective and successful implementation of this program. Let us now try to understand the specific responsibilities of the Gram Panchayat in the different states of the country. The specific roles pertain to 1. Receiving applications for registration, verifying registration applications, registering households, issuing job cards, receiving applications for work, issuing dated receipts for those applications for work, allotting work within 15 days of submitting the application, conducting periodical surveys to assess demand for work, identification and planning of work, executing work that shall meet the required technical standards, maintaining registers of work and case records, maintaining accounts and providing utilization certificates in formats prescribed by the central or the state government, preparing an annual report containing the facts and figures and achievements relating to the implementation of the schemes, awareness generation and mobilization, and very importantly, celebration of a Rozgar Divas. Every Gram Panchayat should organize a Rozgar Divas once a month to ensure that workers proactively apply for work under the MGNREGA scheme. However, it has to be noted that applications for jobs under MGNREGA can be received not just during the period when work is given, but round the year also. This facilitates greater penetration of providing work and getting participants interested in work under the 100 days program. Most important part of MGNREGA and the role of implementing agencies is continuous monitoring of work that are being done under the 100 days scheme. Let us now come to the next segment of discussion. What are the goals of MGNREGA? The first and the foremost goal of MGNREGA is social protection for the most vulnerable section of rural community by providing them guaranteed employment for 100 days. The second goal of MGNREGA is to enhance livelihood security for the rural poor through generation of wage employment opportunities in works leading to the creation of durable assets. We need to understand that MGNREGA is the flagship program for generating employment opportunities for manual, unskilled laborers. And this ensures widespread participation of rural, poor, marginalized households. The third goal of MGNREGA is to rejuvenate natural resource base in rural areas by taking care of ponds, digging wells, provision for markets, uplifting of the condition of roads, etc. The next important goal is creation of productive and durable assets in the rural areas. This is an objective to ensure that in future, from these durable assets, many different kinds of employment opportunities may be provided to the poor households. The next important goal is empowerment of the socially disadvantaged and marginalized communities such as scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, women, as well as ensuring that they have a guaranteed wage employment. The next important goal is to provide for a right-based productive employment opportunity. The next important goal is to strengthen decentralized participatory planning through convergence of various anti-poverty and livelihood opportunities. This means that instead of a top-down model of implementation of social welfare, MGNREGA tries to provide for implementation of social welfare through a bottom-up model through more participation of the rural local governing institutions. The next important goal is deepen democracy at the grassroots level by strengthening Panchayati Raj institutions. As we have already studied, the entire implementation of MGNREGA scheme is through the Panchayati Raj institutions in the different levels. Now let us come to a different analysis of MGNREGA. MGNREGA provides livelihood and employment, and so does many other schemes already in place as implemented by the central and the state governments. Then how is MGNREGA a paradigm shift from all earlier employment opportunities or other employment opportunities that are found in the country in different places? Firstly, MGNREGA is a demand-driven wage employment program, and resource transfer from central to state is based on the demand for employment in each state. Thus, it is not supply-driven but demand-driven based on the amount of applications received by the Panchayati Raj institutions for 100 days work. Second, it is a bottom-up, as I just said. It is people-centered, demand-driven and self-selecting right-based program. So here the people have the right to receive 100 days work in a financial year, and if after registering themselves they do not receive work, they are entitled to an unemployment allowance, and this is what makes this particular scheme so different from all other employment generating schemes in the country. The next important thing to understand that this particular scheme provides a legal guarantee to wage employment by providing allowances as well as compensation both in case of failure to provide work on demand and if there are delay in payment of wages for work undertaken. Thus, it provides livelihood security to the workers. Another very important paradigm shift is in terms of the plans and implementation of the work. Please note that the plans and decisions regarding the nature and choice of work to be undertaken and the order in which each of the work site is selected, etc., are to be made in open assemblies of the Gram Sabha and ratified by the Gram Panchayat. This means that all the eligible voters in a particular Gram Panchayat area have a right to know what work is being undertaken in that financial year under MGNREGA. Thus, it ensures clear transparency in terms of creation of work as well as providing work to the rural households. Thus, MGNREGA marks a break from all the other relief programs of the past towards an integrated natural resource management and livelihood generation perspective. Now, it is to be understood that it is mandatory for state governments to conduct social audits to review the utilization of funds. This is a very important area of the MGNREGA scheme, in so much so that all records, all plans and all utilization certificates are to be made public, and everyone has the right to know about the amount of funds received, the funds percolating down to the workers and the utilization of work done. Allocation of work is done directly through the government without any stakeholders in the middle, and preference is almost always given to unskilled workers who must be employed within a 5-kilometer radius of the village. Thus, what is very important to note is that the area where work has to be undertaken, and very importantly, it provides for natural resource management and creation of durable assets. The Act permits more than 260 projects classified under 4 main categories: project work and public work related to natural resource management, individual assets for vulnerable segment of the society, common infrastructure, as well as ensuring rural infrastructural projects. Thus, we need to understand that there are various categorization into which work under MGNREGA can be divided and fit into. What have we learned so far? We have already understood that this is a flagship program for employment generation. We have also understood that MGNREGA is a complete break from all traditional conservative relief and employment generation programs of the past. We need to understand in conclusion that MGNREGA has been enacted and implemented to fulfill 2 objectives. 1, to ensure specific, guaranteed, demand-driven, at least 100 days employment to rural households and thereby securing their livelihood. And number 2, ensuring that rural local self-governments plan and implement the project in a developed as well as structural way. Apart from these 2 objectives, there is a third objective to ensure that durable assets can be created which can go a long way in generation of future employment. One important point to note by way of conclusion is that the institutional machinery for the implementation of MGNREGA, which is through the Gram Panchayat institutions, they have a remarkable role to play in the efficient and effective implementation of MGNREGA. Thus, we can conclude that MGNREGA since 2006 have been efficiently garnering itself towards creation of employment as well as durable assets, and it has been appreciated by world institutional structures as a flagship program for securing livelihood for the rural and the marginalized segment of the society. Thank you.